Hey Regan, good morning. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to get to learn about your perspectives on womanhood through our conversation here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm not really sure what will come up.
Likewise.
Excited to be prompted.
Yeah, but first to start off, I'd love to hear from you about different models of womanhood you experienced and learned about from women in your family growing up.
Sure. So I'll give you the landscape of all of the women in my family. There's my grandmother. She was the oldest of seven, and she was raised by a single mother, which in the 40s is actually really crazy that there was a single mother raising like seven children. And my grandmother basically worked from a very young age to help her take care of all of her younger siblings. Um, and then my grandmother had my uncle, my aunt, my mom. Then my mom had me. Obviously, my mom had me when she was 16. And then I also have two um, younger sisters. So they're 11 and 13 years younger than me. There's a lot of female energy in my family, and it feels very like women driven, feels very much like a matriarchy. My grandfather was a traveling salesman, and so he was out of the house a lot. And so I feel like the cultural norms of our family is like very driven by my grandmother and her style. Um, and my uncle has Asperger's, and so I feel like he also didn't have like a huge influence socially and culturally like on our family. He was mostly just doing his own thing, um, and a lot of the impact and driving force of the family is like my grandmother and my mother. Um, my grandmother and my mother were also entrepreneurs, so I feel like this is a little bit of the context. Lots of women, both of them were business owners. Uh, I feel like some of the different models that came up were, I think from both of them, I saw them get very exhausted. And so there's like a pervasive sense of exhaustion in womanhood that I associate, like picking up everything, um, or being on top of everything. And I think maybe this comes from the fact that they were both business owners and had to sort of do it themselves. My mom had me so young, and then my dad didn't. He like wasn't really around. He's not even on my birth certificate. Uh, and um, I think that left them sort of like constantly exhausted in a sense. Um, but they're also very strong and very compassionate, and like the way that they show up is intense. And I think that I have learned that and like very intensely showing up for people in the ways that they need it, and constantly expanding yourself. One of the things that I've been sitting with a lot recently is expanding my vessel. So like I want to take these models of womanhood, what I see is like virtuous from my grandmother and my mom, as being there for people and being emotionally present and really trying to hold as many people in your care orbit as possible. But they definitely overextended themselves. And so I've been playing around with like how to expand myself so that I simply can just hold more people and also take care of myself at the same time. I feel like given the environments that like both my grandmother and my mom grew up in, they didn't necessarily learn how to do that. I don't know if that answers your question. A little bit of like care, compassion, intensity,
hmm
like a fuck it, I'm just gonna do it anyway energy. My family
Yeah.
is very we like do things out in the open as well. I don't know if that's very feminine. It doesn't feel like, maybe it's like nagging or nitpicking in sort of like a traditional sense, but it's like very just we see something and we call out the elephant in the room. And I guess I associate that with like a more feminine mode.
Hmm. It's such a unique way family structure growing up. Um,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, my mom lived in the house with my it was my grandmother and grandfather. My uncle lived in the house with me growing up, and then my mom lived there for a short period of time while I was very young. Um, she was like out of my life for a couple of years, and then she came back um, and lived with me from like maybe ages like 4 to 8, and then got married and had my half sisters.
Being an older sister, did you yourself become more of a caretaker into like your teenage or older teen years?
I did a little bit. Um, I haven't always actually been the best sister, and I think that was one, the fact that we grew up in different houses. Um, that was quite difficult, especially when my mom divorced my sister's dad. Uh, to the age gap made it pretty difficult. Um, I was in college when they were like 4 and 6, and maybe like 5 and 7, and I was just pretty flaky. I was learning a lot about like committing myself, overcommitting some of the lessons that like I saw my grandmother and mom kind of do, and I had those very early in college, being like, "Oh, I promised to be here for my sisters," and like actually I double booked myself. And there is just like a cultural gap between us. They tend to be much more normy, and I grew up like very online, and I rejected a lot of like traditionally feminine symbols. We can talk about that later. That's like dad trauma, but uh and so it's hard for me because I had to learn like putting makeup on from first principles in a way that feels very silly to other women when they're like watching me do it. They're like, "Why are you? What is happening here?"
Hmm. Yeah, what are the ways you would bond with the other women in your family as a kid?
Mm. Uh, I helped my grandmother garden. But actually, the first thing that comes to mind is like because we ran the family business, it was all hands on deck, and so the bonding was actually just taking things off of like my grandmother and my mom's plate to make them less stressed, so they'd have emotional presence for me.
Hmm. So you do practical like tasks and chores so they would be more,
Yeah, like
yeah,
acts of
emotionally freed up.
service.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's tied up in a lot of like obligation stuff for me.
Hmm.
Um, I think womanhood is deeply tied up in family with me, in your presence of family and what you do for family. Um, yeah, filial duty, filial piety, that kind of thing.
Hmm. When your mother and grandmother were more like emotionally resourced and freed up, how would you describe like the qualities of their like emotional presence and like love with you?
Very caring. My grandmother has a very soft energy, um, very understanding. My mom tends to have a harsher edge. She'll say, um, like, I won't say something unless I believe it, and I'm going to tell you how I feel about you to your face. And so I feel really honored to have that sort of like fiery passion and fiery love where I know that she is proud of me and I know she feels very strongly. Um, and when she ever questions me, I have to go through the ringer in order to stand up for myself. But I felt like that actually made me more fierce. I didn't collapse under that weight. I was just like, no, fuck you, mom. Like, I'm actually fine. I'm gonna do my own thing and I'm gonna live in New York and I'm gonna have friends on Twitter and it doesn't make any sense to you. And she's gonna have lots of questions. And the way that she encourages this is very much like, I'm going to put pressure and I want you to push through that pressure in order to show me that you're strong and capable enough of like handling this. And my grandmother has the softer side of like, oh baby, it's okay. Like we're gonna do this and I'll hold your hand the entire way. And I
Mm.
think that combination actually worked really well.
Oh yeah, it's almost like energetically or emotionally, you got like two poles of like the sweetness from your grandmother, then more like a
Mhm.
harshness or more intensity from your mother, like a typically more maybe masculine
Yeah.
expression. Huh.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think that's probably true. I also see them as like two polarities in masculine and feminine. Like um in in masculinity there's like the soldier, but there's also the mage as two forms of like a softer and a harder masculinity. I don't know, the feminine version would probably be like mother and empress or something.
I see.
These different archetypes.
Hmm.
Because her harshness feels distinctly different from like a masculine harshness.
I see. Hmm. So you would push back, or I guess like respond, stand up for yourself to your mother. In those moments, did you feel like her pride towards you or happiness, or was like, did she stay like stern and stay pushing back or harsh as you would push back against her?
I wouldn't call my mother stern.
Mm,
I would say suspicious, critical, not stern. Stern feels much more proper. I think of my mother as much more like clawing to the top, like forcing her way, willpower, drive, and the kind of um, feral wildness that comes from having like an entire like society and experiences push and pressure on you. And I feel like her way of protecting us from that is actually like giving us that first layer with her rather than the outside environment. Because there's like a unconditional love that she has, but she's still going to make it. There's still going to be like pressure getting through.
mm,
Does this make sense?
hmm
Yeah.
mm. Wow. Yeah, I want to move into like your early adult years, like maybe in college or first job after college. In those environments, um, how did you like shift or update, if you did, models of womanhood from other women in these environments?
Mm. I think it wasn't until much later, actually. So sometimes during the pandemic is when I realized that I wanted to have kids. And um, that toppled a lot of deep tangles uh, in the ability to be feminine and strong, that there was like a purely feminine type of virtue. Um, that you didn't have to like essentialize yourself into a masculine in order to have power or respect in the world. Um, and that also I could have children and do all of the things that I wanted to do. I think given the exhaustion that I saw from like my mom and my grandmother, I sort of always discounted that. And uh, my dad was like misogynist. He never wanted a daughter and told me that, um, as a woman, like my sole job in the world would be to like make men's lives miserable and that I would like only hurt people around me. And it was just like really toxic shit. Like if I expressed any emotions that people never take me seriously. And so I had to be like a perfectly rational being. A lot of this, he did time in prison. And so I think a lot of this is like downstream of him being in prison. But these two like experiences with my dad sort of pushing out femininity and only valorizing the masculine and seeing like a sort of degraded feminine from my grandmother and mother or like exhausted feminine and also social, being online or like, third wave, fourth wave feminism being like, actually, you can't have it all and you need to like go into the workforce and um, there's like no point in being a mother because we have too many children. I don't know. There was like all of these narratives, right? So I was like, I don't want children, and rejected this part of myself that could ever enjoy things that were typically traditionally feminine. Felt like I had to reject them in order to be acceptable in society or like have my ambitions met. Um, so sometime around the pandemic, I was engaged with my ex fiance, um, and was like, oh crap, like I want to do this and I don't have a good model for what this looks like. And the model that I do have is like my mom who had me at 16 and then had my sisters, but like her life seems like kind of a mess. I don't really know who to look for. A lot of the models online are like trad cats, and I'm not really like about that life either. I didn't really know how to carve out or who to look for. A lot of my college friends were queer, and so I understood femininity uh, in sort of like a binary through a queer lens of like femme or butch from like my lesbian friends or through a sort of um, yeah like queer questioning element, but it wasn't in this sense of like motherhood. None of my friends really had children or even had thought that they wanted them. And the only model that we could really reference was like a more traditional that didn't really feel applicable anymore to like the context that we were in, the current moment.
Hmm. Was there something that catalyzed or sparked the shift from, in particular, from not wanting to have kids to having kids, like one moment or one relationship?
I think it was realizing that I'd been telling myself I was okay with my ex-fiance's job because we weren't going to have kids. Because he didn't make a lot of money. He worked as a rock climbing instructor and made like just above minimum wage. And I was like, this is fine. And sort of like post facto, like rationalizing why I was okay with this relationship and circumventing the thing that I actually wanted to just be like, well, this is the situation and I really like this person and I'm going to be okay with this by changing my goals for my life in order to fit in with theirs. And the pandemic forced you to be with your own thoughts. And I decided to embrace them. I decided to like throw myself on the pyre and see what came out.
Hmm. Wow. Is there, I want to hear you share, like, if you have this, your dream, like, motherhood life. Like, how would you be as a mother? How many kids do you want? What would be like the routines, or how would you be similar or different from your mother and grandmother growing up? I want to hear you wax poetic about all that.
Yeah. Um, I think I want like three kids. Uh, Being raised as something of an only child, because I was raised separately from my sisters, was very interesting. I think it would have been nice to have built-in friends. I feel like the particular gap where I'm like almost halfway between my youngest sister and my mom in age made it very odd to understand my my family constellation, my family placement. Um, so I feel like three kids or two kids. I had wanted like four or five, but that almost seems like too many. And I want to make sure that I have enough attention. I want to make sure that I'm not oversubscribed and I'm being very diligent about that. One of the things that I've thought about a lot is placing my children in a moral framework. And so I think what that looks like is some sort of religion that is very loosely held. So like taking them and giving them a spiritual practice, some sort of framework for them to um, come up through, but also for them to reject. So between my grandparents and my dad was like atheist, and my grandparents were agnostic, non-religious. I've never seen them in a church, um, and we didn't really talk about religion except for one time when I was six. It's like, what is there after death? And they were like heaven. It's like that's not a satisfying answer. Okay, um, and I think one of the things that I would have liked was to have a more uh, workable moral frame. I've been thinking about this a lot, giving them something from that, like a starting point that's cohesive, and then they can understand it as like stepping outside of the box rather than whatever is coming piecemeal through movies and culture and um, like their social entanglements. Um, I want to be much more adaptive to like their educational needs. Um, what else would I do? Yeah, I think most of the things that I would change would just be much more intentional about the time that I'm giving to other people. My mother is very caring, but sometimes it felt like she had more care in the world to give to everyone else besides her family. Like we were the people that came last. And I really admire that she has so much um, something between like compassion and pity for the world. And also, that was very difficult when I'm, fully grown and I'm like actually much more similar to a sister to me than a mom. I don't necessarily respect you as somebody who uh, has guided me and shepherded me. I respect you as somebody in my life, um, who cares about me very deeply, and I want to strengthen that relationship, but we've gotten over the point where you'll ever be my mother. And I think I want to like be a shepherd for my children to always know that I have their back in that sort of yeah, parental way.
Hmm. That was beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I wonder in that like moral or spiritual framework you want to share with them growing up or let them accept or break out of. If you have any idea like what qualities or virtues you might want to have emphasized in this framework for them to experience growing up and then maybe reject later.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important is that it's coherent. Um, and one of the second things that's important to me is that it is culturally intuitive. So the things that I mean by that, like I don't want to piecemeal together some sort of like Western Buddhism that I don't understand that is not an actual framework, and I'm just like repeating slop to my kids. As much as nice as the slop might be, but like if I'm not actually intuiting whatever it is, I think that my children will understand that, and then it will be very confusing for them to understand as a moral framework. Um, I think the cultural intuition is something like I'm not going to select like Hinduism or like Islam because it's not culturally intuitive to me in a way where I want to be able to answer my like children's questions about the framework in a way that I trust is in alignment. So that way, if I don't understand something, I trust that my like spiritual intuition here will be coherent and like fulfill the answers to their questions. And I'm not just gonna like completely out of left field like say something that is um, anti the Quran, right? Because I'm like, oh yeah, my Western mind is like blah blah blah. I don't actually know what the Quran would say about this, so I'm going to say something else, and then my kids would be like, that doesn't sound right, and then they'll be additionally confused. So it probably looks like some sort of like Christianity. I've been looking at Eastern Orthodoxy because my family is Greek. My family is like Greek and Polish, and so it could be like Russian Orthodoxy, Eastern Orthodoxy, Greek Orthodoxy, um, which relies very heavily on not knowing the answers to things. Even the patriarchs in the church will often say, I don't have the answer to that. You know, we're not here to like theologize, we're here to interpret the world and explore like our own phronema being the word for spiritual intuition. And I appreciate the fact that it's less dogmatic than a lot of the other Christian faith. Uh, just simply not being Catholicism, like having an answer
Mm.
to to all of the rules. Sometimes you just have to like vibe it out, and that's a perfectly acceptable answer to say I actually don't know. But there's plenty of criticisms that I would have with orthodoxy, and I certainly wouldn't want my children to like dog food it. I want them to just accept that this is the only framework that they can have, just that this is the one that we are like being raising them in. And I would have a very early conversation being like, I want you to have these tools. I want you to be able to communicate them. I want you to be able to see what virtues are, what values are, and be able to select the ones that you have. Here is the toolbox. I'm putting you in this toolbox. Uh, you don't have to have these ones. Go. But having to figure that out much later in life, I think, is very, very difficult and leads to a lot of heartache and pain. Like figuring out who your identity is. I think a lot of those very core identity building blocks are values, virtues, what is important to you, how you want to treat other people, how you want to communicate with them. And I think that's all done through a moral social framework.
Hmm. Yeah, it certainly seems like having some starting framework to like feel into growing up and have then say yes or no to it later on, like is more sensible than having to piecemeal it from nothing later on in life.
Yeah, well, because I was like, where do kids get this? Like video games, movies, their friends, teachers. It's like that's all fine, but it doesn't come together in a really coherent sense. And I think that leaves a lot of people confused later in life. Um, and the second part that's really important is like, I'm not going to shove this down their throat. So if they at any point are like, no, this isn't for me, that would be built in. Um, I'm not going to, this isn't like, this is the only way, and I need you to do this for the salvation of your soul right?
Hmm.
I'm actually, um, yeah, there's no like soteriological reason for this. Like, you are free to do what you want. And also, here's where we're starting. And we'll also have like we'll have a shared language as a family, which I think is important.
Cool. Back to the pandemic, pre-pandemic relationship with your
Yeah.
fiance, you broke off or it ended. Once you had that shift from I don't want kids to I want kids, um, how did like I guess the fallout or like the end of the engagement look like? Did you have conversations with your ex-fiance? Was it just your own firm decision there? Did he try and push back? What did that look like?
Um, no, it'd been sort of like a long tale. Um, we originally got together sort of like trauma bonding. Um, and by the time that happened, uh, it was what, his 31st birthday. He had wanted to go rock climbing and he had asked to give some birthday belays, and I just did not show up at the climbing gym the entire day. And it was a very simple ask. It's like February 2021. And I think my earlier relationships, my first couple of relationships, they all got to a point in the relationship where by the time that we broke up, we were like done with each other. There wasn't any pushback. In more recent relationships, I've failed faster. And so there is some like conflict or tension. But in that one with my ex fiance, it was just like okay, I'm done. You're done. We've seen this coming. We were holding on for, I don't even know why, because we have some value about like not leaving each other and making things work. We both had this, but we were miserable, and we revealed preference. We're not showing up for each other in the ways that we needed. We weren't able to communicate past a lot of the pain or what was happening. Like, he stopped sleeping in the bed that we shared. Um, a couple of months like into the pandemic, and despite sharing that apartment, we just like were not able to communicate with each other.
Hmm. Hmm.
No fight, no conflict.
Sure. Yeah.
He actually like never raised his voice. Well, he raised his voice at me once, and it was after we broke up when I was moving out, and he was like, like honestly, I don't need to like help you move anymore. Like, this is your own bullshit to deal with. And I was like, that's fair. Okay. But
Hmm.
in the 4 years of us being together, he like never once raised his voice. So
Mm. Yeah. In more recent years, beyond the pandemic, either in relationships and or with female friendships you have to this day, are there other through those connections, are there more ways you've like fleshed out and better understood your own perspectives on womanhood through these other relationships?
hmm. Yeah, I don't know if it's womanhood or if it's myself, my self-conception. I think maybe those things are sometimes tied up. Um, I think women can very much be a catalyst for things in their life, and using their place in other people's hearts in order to empower them to change. Um, I feel like the the two polarities of like my grandmother and my mother are tied so tightly into my conception of like how to show up as the best woman, which is like unconditional love, softness, and also like uh, a bit of like a forcing function. My bio for a long time, I just recently changed it, but my bio on Twitter was like, everybody is welcome, but it's not going to be easy. And I think that is like a motto that I've taken with myself about how to behave as like the best woman that I can be. I will love you all. I will have a lot of compassion for you. And that also doesn't negate the fact that I might have expectations, that I'm going to ask you to be the best person that you can be. I'm going to demonstrate it. I'm going to model it. I'm going to be the leader here, my own like feminine version of a leader in love and community, as a friend to you, as a sister to you, as a girlfriend to you, hopefully as like a mother and a wife. And also like I'm going to put the pressure on you. I think there's a little bit of, the longhouse is good actually. Like having expectations is good. Having like a little bit of social pressure and obligation is good. Taken to the extreme, I understand why a lot of people push back against like the rigidity of this, the pressure of this. But I think needing of other people is beautiful, and having other people need of you is beautiful. And that's like femininity to me. That's womanhood to me.
Hmm. 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 What are
It's wrapped up in motherhood, needing it like infancy, right? You're carrying this like very vulnerable thing in yourself, but also women are like weaker than men, and need to be protected. Certainly in like a hunter gatherer tribe, not so much anymore, but I think that there's like this beautiful interdependence that is at the crux of womanhood,
hmm.
and employing that in the way that we treat other people today socially, that we can have these relationships where we're saying, I need more of you emotionally or spiritually or whatever it is, and like encouraging people with this warmth to just step into their own power.
Hmm. Wow. Relationally, about with regards to being needed, are there ways in particular you most enjoy, like either needing something from someone else or being needed, that are particularly fulfilling or meaningful to you?
I love being needed. Pathology. uh, oh man, I love being background needed by people. I can explain this. I have a lot of people who are like chugging along with their life, and it's fine. I'll do something really small for them, um, and it makes this rippling effect. And they know that it was me, but it's not this like huge thing. It's just like, oh, I remember to send you this card, or like I always remember to send flowers, or call you on your birthday, or one time uh, I had like helped this one friend like quit cigarettes and spent like 3 weeks at their place helping them quit cigarettes. And it's like, this is fine. This is just like shit that I do, right? Like it just happens. It doesn't matter if we're like good friends or not really good friends. Obviously, it matters. I cared about this person a lot, but I would do this for a lot of different people. And I love being needed in this like way where it's just like, hey, come do this thing, make this impact, have this domino effect. It doesn't need to be like a constant sort of thing, but I will give you like all of my love and attention right now for this moment, and we'll see what happens from this. And I will try to like unblock you on this thing, and goodbye. Like I never have to talk to you again.
Hmm.
Flitting
Yeah.
into people's lives, fixing their windows and leaving.
Yeah. I've experienced or received like multiple of these like acts of generosity from you myself, and it's a really exquisite skill. Like I think few people have it, the degree to which like you keep up and like keep an ongoing like open channel of communication and just like little acts of service and kindness that could easily go like ignored or not receive gratitude in return. But you seem to have a lot of like energy and capacity to serve others in this way. It's really admirable.
I think, on a practical sense, it's pretty easy. I keep a list of everybody's addresses who I've come across. And one of the small things is just like remembering to send Christmas cards each year if I can. Um, Sometimes I don't send them two in the same year because I have the same Christmas cards, and that'd be embarrassing for them to get the same Christmas card. uh, but it's like, okay, that takes like what, an hour or two for me to write all of these cards to like 50 people, 70 people. And I think it really makes a difference. I had a friend actually also, yeah, in Texas, last year who said that he was really going through a hard time with his wife and was having some really dark thoughts. And the card helped him decide what he wanted to do with his family and also like gave him the power to keep living day to day. It was just a small act of kindness, and it was like, hey, here's a reference to some of the conversations we had, and here I hope that like your son is doing well, and you told me that this stuff about him, and just referencing the conversation, like remembering that people are people and remembering these facets of them and bringing them into the conversation and being like, hey, you matter to me. And I only get to say it like once a year, but like you matter to me, and I remember all of the stuff about you. You're still this person in my head. You're
Mm,
visible. And I think so many people, like he had felt invisible in his own life for such a long time that having even some acquaintance remember meant a lot.
mm. Yeah, that's so caring. Hmm. Gonna gonna veer conversationally at this point. I'm curious, societally, culturally, more broadly, from your perspective, do you see like stories or um, takes on femininity or womanhood that you think are either super on target or super off? Either of those, I'd love to hear about what you're seeing more broadly.
The thing that comes up for me is uh, fear over a rejection of feminism. So I don't have a specific narrative. There's not like a character that I can point to that I really like. I just have general feelings, so I'll talk about those. I see in everything that I've talked about interdependence, community maintenance. This is a lot of like um, on financed work. It's not necessarily sustainable today if you're not being taken care of by somebody else, and that doesn't give you a lot of independence. And there's a lot of very legitimate concerns about what happens to people who are dependent on other people, um, like women who are dependent on men typically or their families, and what those kind of obligations and trade-offs look like. Um, and so I get very scared, despite everything that I said about women not having their own independence, and some of these like lifestyle influencers, particularly like trad ones, young ones, telling women that they're like going to be taken care of and they'll find their prince charming. And like, I'm just very concerned about people who will be mid 30s and get a divorce and have no skills or life savings because their husband's like taking care of the bank account their entire life um, because they want to live in this coquette fantasy that doesn't actually exist. I think there's something in between that's like you can have your not instead of like trying to return um, instead creating like a modern modal woman of what femininity can look like and be a part of your community and be a matriarch, but also have skills or have a job or like know how to take care of yourself. This is not a dirty thing. And I know that we're all like tired and want to be baby, but we do like this is what it comes from. Like all of these women want to be baby, and it's like you can be baby and you can also be adult. Like you can be mom too, and you can be your own mom, and that's good. Uh, and instead of rejecting that, like I think some of the problems with second, third wave feminism is like you have to be dad. You can't be mom. Mom is bad. Like you have to be dad, and you can't be baby either. And so I think there's a possibility to be like, no, I can embody all of these archetypes, and that's what the future woman will look like, hopefully.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you're advocating for a more either like fluid or integrated model of existing as a woman in family and relational structures, like
Oh,
to
certainly.
be exist as different like archetypes or modes as the circumstances call for it, moment to moment.
I think adaptive. I think femininity to me, womanhood to me, as difference from girlhood is adapt adaptability. girlhood distinctly wants to be taken care of. And a lot of like trad influencers, I think, promote girlhood rather than womanhood. They're advocating for somebody else, for you to step into your girlhood as a um, permanent girl
Hmm.
and to like trade that role for somebody else to take care of you, for you being demure and coquette and like making cute little things and making the house lovely. And like that's all great and fine. And like I want to do all of that too. And also my womanhood is like I'm capable, I'm going to handle the finances, I'm going to be somebody like who is a partnership in running this household and running this business, whatever that is. I know that I'm going to take care of myself should like anything else fall by the wayside. My womanhood, I can stand on myself by myself on my own, um, as a backup option should everything else fall apart. Like should my relationship, my future husband like leave me, I'll have my other relationships to fall back on. Should I lose some friends, like I have my romantic relationship or like my business to fall back on. It's just being adaptive and more whole, more integrated in a lot of different fabrics rather than like I'm going to be perpetual girl over here and like look cute and be taken care of.
Hmm. Yeah,
Which,
that.
distinctly different from daddy, which is like second wave feminism was like, you must be daddy, you must go to work.
Hmm.
Because the other option was like what popping Valium all day. So I get the context it came from. Something coconut trees.
Yeah, thanks for that elaboration. Yeah,
Yeah.
to me, like that adaptivity and being able to like rely on yourself ultimately if everything else falls apart, uh, that evokes like sovereignty to me. That's been an
Mm.
evocative word for me this year, and that's a nice like model you elaborate on for existing as a woman and not a permanent girl.
Yeah, you sovereignty is a word that I really love. My name Regan is a derivative of Regina, which is queen, reign, yeah, sovereign.
Beautiful. Hmm.
Yeah, so I think about this as like how do I hold power responsibly? How do you hold power? What does power look like? What does power mean? What obligations do you have to other people in relationship to that power that you have over them? How much power do you have over people immediately? Some people give you their power like right at the start. You have to earn others. It's a very interesting dance.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you know if your mother or parents named you that with any queen in mind or the word queen at all intentionally, or just is a coincidence?
It was a coincidence. I
Well,
think it came from The Exorcist.
okay. I
And my
haven't
mom was
seen it.
choosing between that and Bronwyn. So,
I
which
could
I think is
see,
like brawny strength.
yeah, I could see Bronwyn also.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right. At this point, I'm going to look at my document over here of questions and see which
Go
ones
ahead.
stand out to ask you. Oh,
Yeah, we've been
wow.
all over the place.
That's how it goes. Uh, which facets of womanhood most strongly express themselves through you?
um, I think care, compassion, like in a traditional sense, resiliency. Mm, yeah, like a loyalty. Is the feminine loyal? I think so.
Could you
Uh,
elaborate on feminine resilience?
yeah. Though it's personal. This is getting into some darker stuff, but like, so I've had two abortions and I've been raped once, and like sexually assaulted, and a lot of feminine resilience, I think, looks like overcoming like sexual domination uh, from other people, and so it's constantly being this ecosystem of like sexual fear from men, or also like scarcity. And I think that there's like a feminine resilience to that, and that repeats right from like men leering at you from a young age to potentially being like harassed or assaulted or raped, and then experienced again through motherhood, like giving birth, and then experienced again through menopause. And it's like all of these contextual life changes as you have to like navigate your relationship to other people and how much like ownership they have over you, or how like much utility you have to them. So whether like in a sexual place or like a child, as much as like I want to hold a child uh, to term, like it is sort of a parasite and like what it takes from you. Um, and then also like once you go through menopause, like you cease having like a type of utility to society and are sort of cast aside. And I think all of this is like resiliency to structures, or like resiliency to like repeatedly like coming through yourself and like reestablishing your relationship to yourself and society each one of these times that um, things seek to dominate you or put pressure on you, constantly rising again.
Hmm. Yeah. If you're willing to share, I'm curious to know like your personal process or mindset or ethos around like acting on that resiliency or being resilient.
Um, my personal process on acting resilience.
Another way of framing it might be, how do you know you've been resilient in your life?
I think that it's a feeling of breaking through a wall, or I've noticed that I've slowed and then can speed again. So resilience, the act of the oppression feels like sludge. And I'm using oppression very like loosely, right? Like things that have happened that really suck are like a type of sludgy oppression. And I continue treading through that sludge until I break through and it's now water instead of oil. Um, and that feels like resilience. Like the moment that I can tell that things become easier once I've been struggling and thrashing for a while, whether that's my own relationship to like how I'm being perceived. For example, like some guy leering at me on the street, like my relationship to that has just changed. And so I feel like I've been resilient in this sort of like thing that I can't control. But and then also in like personal circumstances that have really sucked. My own grieving of like what things could have been, or like the relationships, or what has been, taken from me. Um, those instances create like an oppression around them, and then I allow myself to keep moving and processing that like emotional pain until it becomes easy enough for me to be able to talk about or think about or um, relate to in a way that's not so like immediately defensive and touchy.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, from what I heard there, like it sounds like some sort of motion or action is an essential component of your resilience, where you could just like counterfactually just like stop moving and drown in the sludge, but instead you keep trudging through it to eventually reach the breakthrough.
I think so.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's surrendering, but it's
Hmm.
like knowing when to apply that. A slight tangent. So I have Invictus tattooed on my side. And the important part of this is the master of my fate, um, the captain of my soul. And I was talking to Fractal Auth recently who was like, oh, tell me about that. And I said, the master of my fate is me uh, basically deciding where we're going. I'm charting the course, I'm navigating, I'm saying, like, this is where we're going. And the captain of my soul is recognizing where all of the stops are on the horizon, all of the dangers are, and knowing that's too much for me, and like knowing when to surrender or let myself submerge. And so I'd say that a resilience that I've been learning recently that is not pure willpower is like knowing when to rest and relax, and um, when I've thrashed too much, actually, and like the easiest way to slip through is uh, to like relax into the tendrils. Sort of like what is that in like Harry Potter, where they have to like sit still and then it sets them through.
Yeah. Gillyweed? I forget exactly what that was. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
the devil's snare.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think
hmm
that's what that is. And so that's like a new type of resilience, I'd say.
hmm Yeah, discernment between pushing through and surrendering.
Yeah, master versus captain.
Yeah, wow. It's great. Great tattoo.
Yeah, thanks. I got this done when I was like 19. It's continued to evolve for me.
Hmm. I'm curious then what was like the original impetus or interpretation you had for that tattoo?
It was intense. It was used in a couple of different rituals. A friend of mine, and also in like a fraternity, and it kept popping up for me in a lot of different ways, like 3 or 4 times over the course of a couple of months. And I just thought that was very there was a lot of synchronicity. So then I was like, okay, this means something. And instead of getting one line of it, I got the entire thing tattooed. Like it goes from like the top of my ribs down to below my hip.
Amazing.
I don't know why I decided to get the entire tattoo
Hmm.
instead of just, the last 2 lines or something. But
Hmm.
it's paid dividends.
hmm Currently in your life, do you experience any societal expectations or pressures related to womanhood?
That's interesting. I think that I have in the recent past, but currently no. I think all of the expectations that I have on me are ones of my own making, not necessarily tied to my womanhood
hmm
or like other people's relationship to womanhood. I think it matters more who I am as a person, which is uniquely woman, but not like women as a construct socially.
Got it. What personal pressures, self-imposed, are you experiencing right now or currently in your life?
uh, I like I show up emotionally for a lot of people, and sometimes it's hard for me to know the boundaries when to say no. Um, Simple stuff like cleaning, like making a space beautiful, like my preference for it is much higher than some of the people around me. Where I'm like, okay, this is like a sort of woman coded activity. But I don't know where to place that of like, is this them putting a pressure on me because I'm a woman? I don't think so. I think it's actually just my preferences to have this like be nicer or prettier. Um, what are some other ones? Like family obligation stuff, where my family's like, well, when are you coming home next? Because my sister's just starting her senior year of high school. They're like, well, you're supposed to be here, and a good sister would show up for Friday night football games, and I'm like, I live in New York, I can't do that.
Does your sister play football?
She does not. She's on the dance team
Cool.
for the band. She like twirls baton.
hmm
And my other sister was a cheerleader. I was in band.
Oh, wow, it's like all three. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Dance, cheerleader, and band. Is there anything you're ashamed of wanting?
Respect. Uh, I have a lot of disgust around seeking respect. That's something that I've been untying recently. That I feel like the dignified way is to do the work and then have people respect you after the fact. But you're not supposed to say anything about it. So the most refined way to earn respect is just for other people to talk about it, like sort of around you. You're not allowed to demand respect.
Excuse me.
I liked that sound.
Mm. Sometimes water goes down the wrong hole, you know.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
back.
Which hole?
um, mm. So does the disgust come from like that expectation or like desire for it, like knowing you may not get it, and that's disgust related respect is really interesting to me.
um, I think it's more like I'm fucking annoyed that people will say shit and then not have receipts. They'll just be like, I'm going to do this thing. And then they don't do the thing. And I'm like, you got all of this clout for saying that you do the thing and you didn't do the thing, or you didn't follow up. You created this really nice structure and then you didn't do any of the cleanup or maintenance to like support the structure in perpetuity. And that's annoying to me. I really hate that kind of stuff. And so instead, I'm over here trying to be very diligent and do my work. And I feel like I don't want to make myself look like the other people. So I'm just like, well, I'm going to do my work over here and it's going to be done correctly. And everybody's going to love me because, look, I'm making the systems work.
Mm. Oh, do you end up getting like less respect or accolade than the loud, boisterous person who doesn't follow through?
Yeah.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah. This has
Wow.
happened a couple of times in my life.
Yeah.
And so I have like a bugbear about it.
Hmm.
My friends have uh, slowly been undoing this in my life. And they've been helping me get over both my blockage of saying that I'm doing things and to um, my weirdness around other people saying that they're doing things. So
Hmm. With your experiments aided by your friends and being louder about what you're doing, I'm curious to know like the most successful or like a memorable time that you did be loud about something you're doing and what you experienced there?
uh, I recently have I'm trying to coordinate a bunch of teapot organizers into like a town hall. I'm going to have the first one of those in a couple of weeks, probably like the middle of September. And that was me kind of using my past receipts, but also just being like, hey, you guys trust me and you see me and you know that I'm in the community. And like, we kind of have this need for somebody to try and organize all of these different fiefdoms so they're communicating with each other. Um, I think that was one of the most successful things that I did recently, where I was loud and proud and vocal about it. And the loudness of it actually allowed for better coordination because there were people being like, add me to the chat, or like, I want to know what's happening, or so glad to know that like who to go to. Um, and I've rival voices. No Silver V to thank for that because he was like, you have to let people know that you're doing this. If it's not legible, then it'll be really confusing, and then there might be like work duplicated. And he helped me unblock some of it because he was like, actually, you don't matter. Like the role matters, the system matters, the job matters. You don't matter. And I was like, oh great, I get to remove myself entirely.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah, I saw that tweet. Glad to know that was a recent example. Did you, besides maybe chatting with No Silver V, have preparation or like inform any of the organizers that was going to happen, or was it a surprise to everyone you like tagged?
Oh no, I met with each one of them individually.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
thorough.
Yeah. Well, I see it as like diplomacy. Um, I'm not going to like I care a lot about doing things appropriately and having buy-in. I know maybe buy-in's like a weird word. No buy-in. Um, because when you're bringing everyone to the table, you want them to be able to like speak freely. One of the things that I think works really well is that there's an open air dialogue and we're able to criticize each other or say things to each other. If somebody is going to be like coordinating, they need to be available to receive some heat. Um, and so I met with each person individually, because I was also like very sensitive to the fact that some people might perceive it as like a status grab or just have strong feelings. A couple of people did, and I was able to like sit with them for some people I talked with for like an hour or two, just being like, here's the plan, like here's what I want to do, here's what I see in the scene. I care much about this. Um, like, how would you help me make better decisions here? What is the best way to like wrangle everybody? What's the best way to have buy-in from people? And now I'm just rambling, but yeah, I met with everybody individually. They all knew.
Hmm. Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, you when you coordinate people, you definitely want to uh, care. I think that was just like going back to the much earlier conversation, like showing a lot of care and attention to people, and they
Hmm.
all show that to their communities. So treating everybody like they matter.
Hmm. I think that speaks to as well, like the quote unquote like small details actually mattering a great deal. Like the annual Christmas card is not much, but it actually is. Like year over year, it adds up. And then make
Yeah,
sure you reach out to every single last person you want to have involved there is, um, yeah, like just one conversation may not matter to one of the organizers, but you doing it to every single person is like huge.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I think of power. Um, David Chapman wrote this thing that was like seeing like a king recently, and this was really resonant with me because it's actually a way that I've been thinking about how to engage with other people for a very long time. Um, and he relates it to having power or seeing like a king because we're all kings of some sort of kingdom in some domain, some friend group, our families in some sort of relational way. And the best way to behave like a king is to both have state capacity, so to be like on top of everything and see everything that's happening, and also experience as a villager, so like all of these small details. And the way that I've been thinking about how to relate to people for a very long time is like having this big overarching like scene container, or like maybe it's my family, and it's like understanding all of what's happening in my family. In my friend groups, it's like understanding all of the different like things at play that are happening in my friend group. Um, and then also having that like villager experience or that attention to detail of like, I'm going to have this individual relationship with my friend A, and I'm going to like remember that friend A likes carrot cake, and I'm going to sometimes bring them a slice of carrot cake from work. Like random. Like I don't even when I remember to do this, I will bring them a slice of carrot cake. And then when we're like having a big friend event and we're like trying to plan their birthday, I can chip it and be like, oh, I remember that friend A loves carrot cake. So for their birthday, when we're trying to all coordinate as a friend group, my slice of this can be I'm grabbing the carrot cake.
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't read that Seeing Like a King piece, though I am currently getting one-shotted by Meaningness, if that's the same guy.
It's the same guy.
Um, yeah, that description there, like it spoke to like a macro and micro simultaneously, where it's like you can be kind of in a way like zoomed out or outside the whole scope of things to like see the whole every macro dynamic happening and kind of the systems level. And then also like be in it as well when that serves the people or the individual connections.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
very bad at like the middle level, like the administrative level, but I can do the top, I can bookend.
hmm,
And I am usually drawn to people who can do the middle administrative or like architect work.
hmm. The middle level to me like speaks to like groups of a handful of people or just a yeah, handful of friends. Do you prefer like one-on-one connections over like friend groups personally?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, I get overwhelmed in groups of people.
It's like, when is it my turn to talk? What do I
A little
say?
bit. Yeah. Or like I feel weird about taking up space, or I will usually just like take one person away and be like, I'm going to talk to you now. Um, I can only feel comfortable in large groups of people if I have individual one-on-one relationships with everyone.
Everyone.
So
Wow.
yeah, so my homies group in New York is close to this. It's like maybe 20 people where I have like individual one-on-one relationships with everybody. But this is a first where I can be in a room of mostly people I consider like quite close friends, and all of them, and not get overwhelmed. And even still, sometimes I'm like, whoa, this is too much happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because then I want to sit on the outside and observe.
Oh, okay. In these larger groups, how do you still be
I'll
with
like
them?
I'll sit on the couch and just like observe other people having conversations and the way that they interact with each other. This happened at Casatio actually. I got really high and couldn't like form words, but I was just like sitting on a stool and watching everybody else have a good time. And then I was taking notes and was like, "Hey, Rich, like, do you see this happening?"
Whoa. Build different to like do social, whatever, bonding and upkeep,
Yeah,
locked out on the couch.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mm.
He called it stitching magic.
Ooh. I like it.
Yeah.
On a societal level, is there anywhere any place you feel that men are failing women? or anyway?
All over the place. Uh, on a societal level, that's such a loaded question.
They all are. It's
They
tough
all
here.
are.
Womanhood is such a yeah.
Let's see. I think men are failing each other. My biggest gripe about this is that men are failing each other emotionally and therefore fail women in not having some sense of like camaraderie or brotherhood or sense of man unity. I bring back the Masons, back like brotherhood lodges, bring back male only spaces, fraternities. I'm actually really happy for all of that because I think that there's something that's missing in a lot of men's lives. And it's part of the reason like male isolation, male atomization is so prevalent. And actually a lot of these like male only spaces where a lot of male to male peerage, male to male care happened. Yeah. And a lot of that just ends up like falling on women.
Hmm.
So that's the to answer your question, like that fails women, but it's actually a problem that I want to help men solve for other men.
Hmm.
Like give them the tools to be like, hello, actually just focus on yourselves for a little while.
Hmm. Yeah, do you have more to say about like how you want to help and what those tools are?
Um, well, I introduce autistic, isolated boys to each other, and I'm like, here, go play Legos. That's not actually what happens, but I will get them started talking on one topic of conversation, and we'll just like leave the group chat or the text chat or whatever. I'll be like, you guys should play nice, and you should get to know each other, and you might have a good time, um, so that you can have more friends. Uh, I don't actually know what that looks like in practice because I don't know what like male to male friendship looks like. I think it's very different from female to female friendship, woman to woman friendship, but I'm at least trying to make the introductions to be that nexus. Um, I'd be happy to like support male only retreats, by like promoting them. I wouldn't want to go obviously because that would ruin things, but um, and then also just helping the like male leaders that I know grow in visibility or like supporting them because I think role models, any sort of role model of what a healthy man can look like is better than not having it. And so like making sure that the men that I respect aren't getting burnt out or that they are connected to the right people or having the conversations that they need to have to unblock them.
You have so many tools. It's amazing.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not doing enough, but
Hmm.
I want to do more. I want to solve the loneliness epidemic. I'm single-handedly going to solve belonging. That's
No
my goal in
problem.
life. My
Hmm.
soul work.
Hmm.
Everybody will be happy unless they don't want to be happy, and then they will be
Hmm.
at ease.
That's so caring. Hmm.
My domineering fist shall make them happy.
Well, a few other gendery loaded questions here.
Okay.
If you could snap your fingers and change something about gender dynamics and it was totally normal and accepted, what would it be?
I would put a giant box above people's heads, and it would have translated language for the other gender. Like above their heads, it'd be like translated into like rationalist boy speak what I'm saying. And it'd be like coming out, or like you could hold up like a Google image, like they do with they can like translate the words that you're seeing, and it would be like that, but over my mouth. And as the words are coming out, it would just be like translated for them and be like, actually, this is what she's saying.
Yeah, this feels very close to reality. Like all the constituent technologies are
Parts,
there
yeah,
to
yeah,
slap them together.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And the same when I'm like, why are you being so conflict avoidant and weird and like don't want to talk about your feelings? And instead, I have to do like 10 layers of mental gymnastics to like pry down into whatever that feeling is. Instead, it would just like translate it for me and be like, I'm sad about my dog dying. And I'd be like, oh, baby, I'm so sorry.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm crashing out and playing video games for 12 hours. And actually, it's like this completely other thing.
Hmm. Yeah, but depending on like the relationship, you kind of have to go through, or in my experience, you have to go through like the those base layers, like get under to the actual real reason. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I know. And I think this is a somewhat joke answer, but I think on the surface, it could help. And I don't know if everybody needs that. Like, it's a kind of a centralized answer saying, like, oh, women need this and men need this. But I would want some sort of like translation tools to help people just communicate better, a lot of different types of communication so that we're not so confused by like what everybody else is saying.
Okay. Do you experience resentment towards other women,
Like women as a category or individually?
individuals?
I think so, but not as not like for their womenness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for things unrelated to gender.
I think so, yeah. Like values clashes. It might be slightly gendered in that, well, in my conception of womanhood, it might be different than their conception. Like mine is so interdependent and tied with other people. And some of the people that I find that I clash the most with are like very individualistic or like have a lot of personal um and I both resent and respect them for this, like know who they are and know what they want and refuse to be obliged by others. Um, but I find that I have conflict with these kind of people more than I do others.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have a stronger tendency to um, let that conflict or friction just let it be or address it?
I'm in the arena. That doesn't always serve me. Like some people really don't like that and respond poorly, but I prefer to be in the arena and just be like, "Hey, I hate you."
Hmm.
And then they're like, "No, I don't like that. I don't want to be involved with this." And I'm like, "That's fair. That's totally fair."
Hmm.
Um, but I tend to respect people who are willing to like fight with me about or have a very open, authentic conversation. Because I'm sort of like conflict forward, and so I tend to get along with people who are very conflict forward. So some of the people, like um, one of my best friends, I sometimes resent because she knows who she is and like really takes up space and um, has no problem like knowing what she wants or like not necessarily being obliged. Other people are like saying no. And also when I call her out on this, we're able to have like a very um, like just sort of like open dialogue where it doesn't feel like we're fighting, even though it's very like conflict forward.
Hmm.
Um, but some of the other people that I've tried with this with tend to be very conflict averse and so then shy away and then it feels like both of us don't really understand the other person both on like a values level or on like a communication level, if that makes sense. Like I can get along with people who have different values but like have a similar conversation or communication style. But if you have a different communication style, then I tend to have a harder time.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like you can't even agree on like the rules of the game, so you can't play the game together.
Yeah.
Hmm. Gotcha. Yeah.
And I guess people with similar values but different conversation or communication style, like we just end up not having as many communication differences, or like we don't have like conflict as much because we have the same values.
Hmm. But you're probably not as
So,
close either because you're not communicating.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that ends up happening
Hmm.
where I'm
Tough.
like, okay, it's just sort of assumed that we have the same values, or like it's revealed that we have the same values, but we're like not getting into whatever it is that we're talking about. And I really love fighting people. It's one of the primary ways that I show love is like, hey, what the hell is happening here?
Mm, hmm. To me, like that speaks to like truth as a value or honesty. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like authenticity,
Hmm.
um, which encompasses truth or honesty, but it's not honesty for like brutal honesty's sake. It's just authenticity and like calling out the elephant, being like, hey, this thing is weird. I'm interpreting it like this. Can you tell me what's happening?
Hmm.
And maybe you'll have a completely different interpretation, and we're gonna have to square that. Um, but I'm willing to do so because I love you, and
Hmm.
I only really want to put my energy towards fixing the things that I love and care about. Like it takes work to be able to do this. It's not fun necessarily. As much as I say that I'm conflict forward, I think it's way easier actually to be conflict averse and just like let brush things under the rug. But I don't think that that's how you sustain systems. And it's because I love you that I want to put in the work here to figure out how this is not working. And that might be really painful for us. It might cause us to have conflict or disagreements or like maybe even fight. But I'm committed to being here with you and loving you through that. And I hope that you are too.
Hmm. This feels to me like the trade-off between like front loading pain for being conflict forward versus like back loading it. Like it's just like have weird or murky relationships into forever if you just are
Yeah.
conflict avoidant. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm like a very front loaded, like, we are planting the flag and we are like talking about this shit. We're establishing like who we are to each other. And
Cool.
not everybody loves that. But I
Right.
refuse to let things sit unidentified
Hmm.
to its own detriment sometimes.
When do you feel powerful as a woman?
Mm, when people love me. Yeah.
Hmm.
Also when I come. But but specifically with a partner, not necessarily like when I masturbate. Uh when I'm with a partner and they're giving me like all of their attention because of the particular ways in which I like orgasm, and I'm just like, yes, I am so powerful. I get to be baby, and I also have like your complete control, and I'm topping you from the bottom, and I feel very powerful. And that's sort of similar to the, oh, people love me, and I feel very powerful.
Hmm. Is that just in receiving love? Like you don't necessarily have to be returning love to feel powerful? Like that's not relevant in those cases?
And this sounds Machiavellian, but like the giving love is essential to receiving love. And also, I care about them for their own right, but that feels like more giving love doesn't feel powerful. It feels earnest, and receiving love feels powerful.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so there's some sort of cycle there of like dropping out of the power into the earnest service and then stepping back into the power and receiving it.
Hmm.
I
Um,
I haven't integrated that. There's some sort of lesson there for me.
sure. Hmm. And with the orgasming source of power, is that like because the partner knows how to do it? That speaks like their care or love in a sense?
Um, yeah, I think that that's it. There's also a like mental component to it for me, which is um this person is like going to take care of me and they're all about me, and uh I'm like so particular about like the sounds and the sensations and the smells. And so I'm like, this person really has to know me and be 100% attuned with me, because like one wrong move is we have to start over. I'm I'm like a very complex boppet, and as one is. And so I'm like, you must memorize this sequence of like 150 moves, and then you'll get the prize. But maybe not. Maybe we have to start over. And so it feels very loving and powerful to have somebody be like so about me that they do that.
Hmm.
And actually, I've had a lot of people who like are willing to do that. So I'm like, oh, cool. That's nice. Like I am lovable or something.
Hmm. Cool. Thanks for elaborating.
Yeah.
Now going to look at some tweets I grabbed using some key terms and see which ones want to be read right now.
Yeah. What were the key terms?
First one says, women in default mode is to be the ground from which others grow. It's a beautiful thing, but it's also the source of the collective anxiety.
Oh, that was cooking. When was that?
Didn't grab timestamps.
Hmm.
What's that?
Okay. The riff on that is collective anxiety. I think this ties back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, of like the exhaustion thing. I think women can be a really fertile soil to get people to introspect, but then they're also having to maintain the systems. Um, and they're also having to take care of themselves. So there's just like a lot of pressure in a lot of different ways, and we've eroded a lot of the social structures that would assist them in doing this. For example, like male to male spaces, like male to male care. Um, I think I stand by what I said on women being like a fertile ground, giving me a birth, right? Like physically, metaphorically, spiritually. Um, but then weren't necessarily meant to like sustain or upkeep those systems. There was supposed to be like other things in place. And we've had so much social, cultural change that those systems are like now collapsing downward onto the people who are creating them.
Hmm. Hmm.
It sort of goes back to the source. And then people are like, well, why did you do this if there wasn't any structure for you to be doing this? Going back to the, I have my own disgust, but people have like a social disgust too, to like, well, why is there the longhouse? Or like, why are women sort of doing this? Or like, why are women asking for men to be so much better? Like if they, aren't getting married or having kids, or I don't know, they have blue hair or something. They're like right wing talking points. Um,
Hmm.
and the answer is like, they're kind of just doing what they're supposed to, but they don't understand that the script is completely fallen apart.
Hmm. Can imagine like one way this anxiety can manifest to like a woman with like a newer male friend or connection, maybe in a social group where she's not quite sure yet. It's like, is he gonna whatever need me emotionally or like put stuff on
Mhm.
me that I don't feel like working with right now? Or is he like self-resourced and sovereign, able to like not put stuff on me that I'm not asking for?
Yeah, definitely. I
Mm.
recently had this at Jeff Camp where I was like kind of afraid to meet new people
Mm.
because I was at capacity and I wasn't sure who was going to need to be baby, especially at an event like that where it was like, there's a lot of different states that people might be in, and I just don't want to be mommy for a lot of new people right now. And I want to make new friends, but I don't want to open up that avenue. And I don't know who the daddies are here that I can point other people to.
Mm. You could have simply worn a I will not be mommy t-shirt. Would have answered any
Yeah,
questions.
there's a lot of questions being asked about my I will not be mommy t-shirt that are already answered by the t-shirt.
Mm. Another tweet here says, women have sex on dimensions most men can't even fathom.
Yeah, that's true. That was inspired by Paris, um, who made the comparison to Boppets. Uh, and the reason that that was happening was because one of the dimensions on which I like to have sex is like energy sex. I don't have a name for this yet, but it's being so wrapped up in the other person, um, without language or without even touch necessarily, that you feel their presence and being, and make like movements however it feels right, You might not even be kissing. You might be just like gyrating and like dancing with each other, and then you come that way because you're. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you sort of like drop out of your own consciousness, and you're just with the other person in sort of this primal animalistic sense. Um, so that's happened to me, like headbutting or just like like sitting on each other's laps and like circling around. And the first time this happened with a couple of my partners, they were like, "What the fuck is this? Like, who are you? This is insane." And I taught them how to do it, and they were like, "This is I would have never figured this out from first principles."
Mm. Um, with your energy sex, is there also like a flow of like giving and receiving? Like, does it flow back between like now I'm giving to you, you're giving back to me energetically?
I think so. It's hard to describe because I like black out a little bit when it
Mm.
happens.
Hmm.
Uh, you're just sort of in this like pure bliss. I feel like I'm tapping into the collective unconscious almost,
Wow.
or at least in the dyad, it's like the two of us are like in conscious awareness together. Um, and so it doesn't feel like there's giving and receiving. It just feels like existing with another person as a unit.
Mm.
I don't know. Presumably, this might happen at orgies if they're done well enough, but like that'd have to be very carefully cultivated.
Aside from uh having men like figure out their own way to have energy sex, would you have any advice, recommendations for men who would like to fathom these dimensions?
Touch yourself without using porn is like the first step. Particularly if you've been using porn for such a long time that you don't know what your body is like without it. Uh, and sort of just getting to know your own body in that sense, feeling comfortable enough to like, I don't know, try different erogenous zones and see where your body feels really good that might be unexpected, like your chest or like your hips. I don't know, like grab them like you would a woman's maybe. Like if you're like, grabbing her hips, maybe grab your own in the little hip dips and see if that feels good. Like rub your own feet. Um, this might be like really interesting sensual play if you just and take time. Set aside like 2 hours to do this. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like get to know your own body in a slow, relaxed way of just, hello, I'm here. I'm going to figure out what very slowly builds the anticipation instead of reaching for climax.
Great tips.
Yeah.
Another
Let me know
tweet,
if you, yeah,
email or DM.
yeah. Email or DM me at.
Another tweet here says, women must be everything while holding a position of nothing.
I was so angry about that one. I feel like these were all coming from old me. That's good. I'm glad to see that I'm like feeling a little bit less angry. Uh, this talks to like having to be very adaptable, where but with the interdependence, you don't necessarily hold a lot of power, and it's because you occupy many faces that you have. There's sort of like this double-edged power sword, which is like because of the role that you're playing, you can take a like respond to a lot of different things or be allowed into a lot of people's minds, emotions, be present with them in really unique and interesting ways. But it's because you don't like pose a threat, and actually like the softer or more malleable you are, like the more spaces that you can fill because you're filling the around the container rather than the container itself. Um, and I think there's something really beautiful about that, like filling in around the area, but also in not having the container yourself, uh, it allows you to like be taken advantage of. So historically, this was like the turn of the century, like women not having the right to vote, or like women not having a lot of avenues for power, even though they were controlling a lot of emotional social decisions. You see this with like prohibition.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like you're still being longhoused, right? But there's no legible container for what like how this is happening. Um, and so I wonder if there is some sort of balance between women are able to like have power or uh, have have like a place or have like a legible way of being like a rigid container and also change shape. Is there some sort of like permeability or like malleability that you can be like the the vessel, the container, and also become amorphous and take the shape that you need to in order to like contain the other?
Hmm. It's really evocative.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd want to say to the more angry past Regan who tweeted that?
I tell her that I love her and that it's okay. And it's okay to be angry and keep thinking, keep thrashing, keep being you.
Hmm.
You're incredible, babe.
It's really sweet.
I trust her to figure it out.
Hmm.
She just needs some unconditional love right then.
It's really sweet. The last tweet here says, "There is no greater existential threat to humanity than a woman who is bored. We must keep them entertained at all costs."
That's true.
That's it.
That's it. That's true.
What does she mean by this?
We're gonna start meddling. Yeah, and you don't want to see women meddling.
What happens when women meddle?
Empires are born. Diplomacy societies are recreated. People are longhoused. They have to get themselves in shape. Yeah, yeah. You have to give women cute little email jobs and fancy coffees so that they don't topple regimes.
Hmm. I mean, you could frame it as like women not doing that stuff is the existential threat if whatever harmful regimes stay in power and amass more power and don't get toppled.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I think it came from my own like I'm bored and I'm gonna start some shit. I'm gonna create some chaos if you don't give me entertainment right now.
Hmm. I want to know like what's the most destructive or I don't know, what regime have you toppled metaphorically, literally, whatever in your own life, your life history?
Um, there's two that come to mind. One is like my family. I just called out everybody in my family once, and I was like, and this and this and this. And we were all sitting around, and I was sort of like elephant in the room, like we all need to do better. Kind of woke scolding, but it was for their own good. And allow them to sort of give the same back to me. And the other one was a um, I would call a friend of mine was uh who like sexually assaulted me and then ended up living together as roommates later. Um, and I would say that I toppled that regime by telling him that my like grace and compassion was more important than being a victim, and that I was really sick of having to place myself in that narrative, and um, that if he wanted to be deserving of the grace that I was going to give him and like the forgiveness that I was showing him, that he should change his behavior to like much younger women. He was like maybe 20 years my senior and somebody who I respected a lot uh, in sort of like a social and like professional context. And I was like, hey, you did this and that really sucks. And also like, I refuse to put myself in this sort of victim narrative because that is exhausting and I don't want to do that. And it's like emotionally not worth my time. So I'm going to choose to forgive you and also I'm giving you this like feedback and information right now that if you continue to do this, like not everyone will be as kind. You may wish to change your own behavior here because I think that it will continue to get you in trouble if you continue to like touch and flirt with younger women as you age. Like you keep dating the same age bracket of women and you keep getting older and that is getting creepier and creepier. Um, and you know, you using the excuse that you were drunk is uh, not sufficient anymore. And he changed his behavior. So I toppled that sort of mental regime. It permeated outwards from him to a couple of other people as well.
Both of those examples, um, they're both conflict forward.
Yeah,
Do you think that women who are more conflict avoidant also have this capacity to topple regimes and act as existential threats to humanity when they're bored?
I don't know. I kind of, I'm like conflict averse racist, but
You gotta elaborate on that.
uh, I just, I don't have high opinions of people that are conflict averse. So, um, I'm trying to imagine the ways in which they are able to do this. Maybe by withholding, withholding can be like a very powerful tool to get people to also consider what they're doing. But I think that that is a tool for a specific type of person, and the best integrated version of myself or like conflict averse women is actually to occupy both positions and respond when necessary rather than being conflict forward or conflict averse. I think that you need to be adaptive to the person that you're dealing with, um, because some people will respond in the ways that like I choose to naturally pursue way better, and some people respond to the like withholding way better. And I think that depends on their own experiences, their own that like the way that they were raised, the way that their parents were, even like the specific situation that they're in. Like I could imagine that some like incident in one person's life could require them to be like conflict forward and really look at it, and the next one might require them to be like conflict averse and like actually ignore it or choose to let it go or choose to deal with it at a later time. Um, choose to, yeah, somebody who's like choosing to be withholding about love or information or access can teach a completely different lesson and might be very necessary.
Yeah, another example of how the adaptivity, the particular strength.
Yeah,
Mm, cool.
all things at once.
Hmm. Is there a question you'd love to hear other women answer?
The first couple of questions that came to mind were like kind of gross, so I'm trying to think of a second one.
You can let the gross
um,
ones just fly.
the gross ones just fly. Uh, so the first one was like, my friend Crystal has this theory that if you poop really fast, it takes you a while to come, and the vice versa. So I'd be really curious to know from other women, like, are you a slow or fast pooper, and are you a slow or fast orgasmer? So like, is there some sort of inverse relationship here? What else? What do you think the future of womanhood looks like? What is like your perfect integrated modern woman? Yeah,
Hmm.
something like that. If you could have any color skin, what would you have? I would have like transparent so that you can see my organs. I think that'd be like kind of fun. Or like maybe like holographic shiny.
Hmm.
Like,
Great,
you
great
step out in the
questions.
sun and you're just like blinding everybody as I'm walking to the subway.
Hmm. Ah. It's not exactly a little out of left field, but I like it. Great questions. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or share that we haven't discussed today?
Hmm. I want to say thank you. Like, this is really fun.
You're welcome.
And I hope you enjoyed going through the rumble zone, the Regan rumble zone.
I felt pretty harmonious with you. I wasn't really pushing back on much. I was more just curious about, yeah, all the things we talked about.
I
I
felt
don't feel rumbled.
okay, that's next time.
Okay, part two will be the rumble
Uh,
zone.
yeah, rankling.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'll try to piss you off.
Could you try right now? From an authentic, obviously truthful
And that's
place.
so hard. Oh man. I like dodged out of frame to think about it. Uh,
Yeah, I saw you duck down.
I think it'd be something like, why aren't you doing more in your life? You know, the last couple of calls we've had, I've seen the same background in your apartment, and it just seems like you want more, but you're not really pushing yourself to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, that'd be a good promising line of a conflict there.
Attack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much for answering all my questions, receiving my curiosity, for taking the time out of your day. I feel like really glad to have shared this conversation with you.
Yeah. I'm really glad to have shared this with you. I enjoy
Cool.
our chats.
Me too. All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.